it's a new year, new vibes, but certain things still remain constant. And that is like answering the trivia question. And that's exactly what we're going to kickstart the show with, by answering last week's trivia question. And who better to do it with than with Brian Mofokeng, my partner in crime. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, Ito. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic.
You look all glowy and yeah, ne? Noli litiga December. Noli monat.
Anyway, let's get into the trivia question. Last week we asked you a simple question and we said that the African continent has 54 countries. Of those 54 countries, how many countries have hosted the Africa Cup of Nations more than once?
It was a very tricky one, you know, and I'm thinking everybody was going through is saying, okay, let me count. You know, there's some stages where we had co-hosts. So you got a total of 11 countries in total. But, you know, some countries had to co-host, like Equatorial Guinea and Gabon.
Yes.
Their first one, they were co-host. The second one, they hosted separately. You know, South Africa has done it twice, in 1996, in 2013 as well. Egypt have hosted the most Africa Cup of Nations, a total of 5. Going back to the first one, you know, the second one, because 57 was hosted by Sudan, and then it all followed, trickled through all the way. Sudan is one of those countries who hosted it twice. Ethiopia more than once as well, and they're going to be part of the one that's coming up shortly. Morocco, funny enough, they've only hosted the AFCON once before now. It's only having the second one this time around, and they do host the upcoming AFCON. So Cote d'Ivoire, as we know, they're hosting their second one.
Yes.
So if you got that one right, 11 countries in total, it was tricky. I know that. There was some stage where Ghana and Nigeria co-hosted as well. So, you know, those you therefore...
It was the co-hosting situation that made it really tricky.
It's very tricky because you have to think about it. Say, okay, Ghana had it twice before they co-hosted Nigeria. You somehow forget the co-hosting part. So it was a tricky one. Well done. I mean, well, if you got that one right, well done to you, because it means you know your African football. Well done.
If you got that one right, it sets you up well for the year that you're about to have. Let's now ask you this week's trivia question that is simply fairly, well, not really simple, but it's about the AFCON. We're asking you about Pierre Ndaye Mulamba. Now, when he played back in the year 1974, he scored 9 goals at the AFCON. Prior to him, there was someone who scored more than that. We want to know who's that person and how many goals did they score. What's his nickname?
Whew. Yeah, ne?
What's his nickname? No, I mean, Pierre, what's his nickname?
He's a assassin of Katanga.
There we go.
Yeah, assassin of Katanga. That's the and I know the person that scored, something to do with as.
Okay.
We'll leave it right there.
As. Okay.
Yeah, we'll leave it right there.
That's the trivia question for this week. If you think you know the answer, hop onto social media. It is at Fut-Afrique. Use the hashtag, the only one that matters. Last year, this year, and the year to come. It's hashtag Fut-Afrique. Jumping into the conversation, when we started the show, I did say that this week our sole focus is on Group F, that is made up of 3 former champions. And we also have the Taifa Stars of Tanzania, who will be making their 3rd appearance. Brian, because it's a group that has 3 former champions, they may not be champions in recent times, but they've lifted the title. How tough does this group look?
You know, when you look at the fact that you have Tanzania as one of they're the lower ranked team in the Group 1. Number 2, making only a 3rd appearance in a tournament. All the other teams have actually appeared in close, the most is 20 in this group, with 19 and 18 respectively.
And 20 will be when they appear now.
When they appear now.
Yes.
But also the fact that they've won the competition before. That adds more pressure. The third thing, which is very important, is that you have a Moroccan team that just got into the semi-final of the World Cup. You know? So if you look at that, the dynamic on its own, just shows that it's going to be a very, very tough group. Because as Morocco coming into this World Cup, everybody's looking at you.
Well, into the AFCON, yes.
You know? They're looking at it and say, okay, you have just done well at the World Cup. Let's see how you hold your 4th year on the continent, especially given the fact that you are the highest ranked nation on the continent at the moment.
They're the team to beat.
They're a team to beat at the moment. So everybody knows what Morocco has to offer.
Yeah.
They know what Morocco can do. Can they be able to come at the AFCON amongst the African peers and do it?
One thing that I wanted to ask you before we jump into the teams respectively, right?
Yeah.
I want to ask you, my 2000 would say, is there hype enough around the AFCON, or is the atmosphere just flat? How are you feeling about this AFCON?
Listen, I mean, if you look at the fact that we've been building this up for a while,
Yeah.
and the fact that you have some new faces who are returning, I think we could do more. I think there's more we can do to actually hype it up, as we do when the World Cup was coming up. It was everybody talking about the World Cup. But what I love also is the video I saw that you guys shared on social media.
Yes.
That video actually got me revved up, just like,
That's
yeah.
That's the TikTok of the lady, actually,
Yeah.
in all the countries, and she changes her outfits and her makeup.
Yeah.
She represents all the nations, the 24 countries that will be there.
I'm looking forward to that. For that reason, I was like, you know what? It is here. Philip is here. You remember the World Cup was here? Philip was here.
I remember.
Philip is here officially. We are now ready for the big matches.
Because we're talking about Group F, right? And you've already touched on the fact that there's so much pressure within this group, but also they're not champions of recent times. What has that say about the growth of African football on the continent holistically?
Things have been spread around.
Yeah.
You don't have now your predominant nation anymore, where you're going to say that when you go to this tournament, you're going to have these ones winning it. I mean, Senegal, for the history they have, continent, the fact that they've only won their first one recently, does say that, there's huge competition.
And this is not necessarily their golden age, if we're actually being honest about it, right?
Yep, it is indeed. I mean, even though when Cote d'Ivoire won it, they didn't have a Dido Drogba in the squad.
Yeah.
Dido Drogba himself got into the final. Yeah, Touré got into the final, couldn't win the tournament itself. So, you realize that sometimes it's not about the stars you have on the field of play, but it's how much they want it, where they can be able to get it, because this is how much they want it.
Yeah. I'm interested to find out from you, DR Congo, I want us to start by talking about them. Yesteryear, they were the team and the nation and the country to fear.
Yeah.
Somewhat people don't want to go play in their backyard because you will lose. But what has happened with the pedigree of DR Congo?
A lot of things have happened. One, money. If you look at that, the owner of TP Mazembe was also running for the presidency of the country. The amount of players he's bringing in shows that they are able to buy any player. There was some stage where DR Congo, TP Mazembe in particular, was dominated by Zambian players. After they won the AFCON, most of those players eventually went to your Renford Calabas of this world were playing for the team. Stopilas of this world were there, to mention that some of the players actually played for the TP Mazembe team. Because of the amount of money they have, they're able to bring in as many foreign players. Foreign in literally just say using the word foreign loosely, because there's no African who's foreign in Africa.
Yes.
The fact that they are not indigenous DR Congo players, it means DR Congo as a country suffers. Because you have a lot of talent that comes into the teams, that play in the teams and do well in the teams, but that affect the national team because you don't have the star players getting a chance to play. Mputu was one of the biggest players they had in DR Congo of recent times. But what happened to him, because a lot of players that came in eventually replaced him.
Yeah. And also I think the fact that, because we know, right, they're also close to the French, most of the players who actually are from DR Congo would opt to play for France as opposed to DR Congo.
They would, number one. And number two also is the fact that you have a setup where around the nations around them are developing so many players that they'll be able to get into the country as well.
Well, let's hold it there. DR Congo, the last time in which they lifted the AFCON, 1974. The big question is, can the Leopards come yet again and be as sneaky as a Leopard really is? Or is their dominance really over?